What's up, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and Steven Crowder did a pretty interesting interview this morning with Nick. Nick is on a generational run right now. A man that was, for a long time, basically nuclear, but, I don't agree with everything he says. I'm sure he doesn't agree with everything I say, but I got to respect his grind and the fact that he didn't go anywhere. He found a way to keep his show on the air, and, well, I don't know if it's the Overton window that has shifted or, what the particular case is, but the guy is everywhere now. And he no longer, for a very long time, really, people talked negatively about platforming. Oh, you can't platform him. Like, dude, people are asking Nick to go on their show for big viewership. Like, he's a draw and has been for a long time, and you can't take that away from him. Has he said some heinous stuff? Sure. But, he's just a kid and, people grow up and they mature, and I'm sure he doesn't support every little thing he said in the past. But I thought, Crowder had him on for an interview / debate today, and there was a lot of interesting things said, but there are two particular clips I wanted to discuss because they relate to something they both agree on, and that is a disdain for Ben Shapiro. I don't have this like deep-seated hate that a lot of people do for him. I think, I wish he was more America first. I still remember when he pushed the jab. I still remember when, he hated Trump. And I remember a lot of this stuff about him. But he doesn't like live in my head rent-free. But it does seem like there's some shady stuff going on. Confirming, by the way, what Mark Dice had reported, giving credit where credit is due, a few years ago. By the way, I want to shout out our, because Crowder viewers love our Coffee Brand Coffee Advent calendars. There's about 350 of these left right now, and 10% off with promo code HOLIDAY10. There's over 20 products in it, and they're all new for this year. So if you got one last year, it's all new flavors, and there's twice as much of them, because one complaint we had last year is I really wanted two, so me and my wife, or I could have it more than once. So we doubled the products, kept the price the same. There's chocolatey snacks. There's a K-Cup adapter in there. So order yours today over at coffeebrandcoffee.com. Up on top, there's a little link for Christmas gifts. You can click on that and come right to the page. Let's go to this here. First, we have the Koof stuff, but let's talk about this. Steven Crowder tells Nick that Ben Shapiro agreed to come on the show, but backed out last minute.
But I think we should stop funding all sides of the war in the Middle East, and hopefully you find that a reasonable position, whether you agree with it or not.
He's saying that he said this to Ben Shapiro, I believe.
I don't think that's extreme, and Ben didn't seem all too bothered by it. But I also invited him to be on the show, and he was going to, and he disappeared. But I just saw him on with Don Lemon and David Pakman, so I guess they're not so abhorrent.
That's interesting. So he agreed to come on, but then he canceled?
Yeah, it was just sort of informal, by text, and then I just haven't heard back from him. He's been on the show many times, so I'll give you credit, Nick. Candace, Tucker, Ben, Mark, everyone invited on. You're the only one with the balls to show up.
Well, Candace didn't. He invited Candace, and I think he offered to pay her $60,000.
Even though he didn't call me out, I saw the clip.
Well,
I was like, "Where's my call
I knew you
out?"
would show up. You're like the candy. You're like the candy man. I say your name 3 times in the camera, you'll show up. No, but we did reach out. I said we didn't want to because we didn't want it to be a conflict. We had already communicated, or my producer had, and I didn't want to call you out as though you were ducking. Those other people have been ducking.
Oh, yeah, totally fine. Yeah. No, and I'm here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And, I think we agree on, maybe this is going to sound like I'm kissing your ass a little bit, but I do always feel like you were less bad than all the other people in the conservative movement.
That's high praise.
Well, and I know that sounds lame, but I mean, during the Groyper War, I know that Groyper showed up to your events, and I remember thinking, like, Crowder's he's not even really bad on many of the issues, like Daily Wire, even like Turning Point was 6 years ago. They got a lot better in the intervening, maybe the past 3 years. Yeah. But but I always think you have balls.
I mean, Nick is on a generational run. I'm glad that he figured out a way to maintain his platform. Again, I don't watch his show, but he makes me laugh a lot of times in clips that I see. I think anybody pushing against deplatforming him is wrong. And honestly, he doesn't need to be platformed. He's, like he goes on Crowder. Crowder does good, obviously on his own, but I think I thought I saw he had 20,000+ on YouTube at least, and then another 50,000-60,000 on Rumble. I believe Nick also streams there. He's one of the larger streams on Rumble. And, I think that you just can't deny it. And so they're talking about Ben Shapiro chickening out. I don't know why. If it's because he had Nick on, I'm not sure. But then they talked about this special treatment, which is something that Mark Dice has talked about before in the past, which I thought was pretty interesting. Now, full transparency, this person wrote, as a regular viewer of Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh, they made their views extremely well known and called out the censorship pressure explicitly and often. Michael regularly has whole sections of his show blacked out on YouTube by Daily Wire so he can speak his mind. So, I mean, I don't know if that, maybe it's just referring to Ben, but this I thought was a pretty little interesting nugget here.
Because I had a lawyer and planned for this. I would get into conversations with Google executives, people at YouTube, and especially as we got toward COVID and the vaccine, right, questioning that or the lockdowns, I would have people very high up at Google, YouTube say, well, we don't have these kind of problems with Daily Wire. And I said, well, I'm not. And without getting into any private information, there were conversations that took place, and that was something that really rubbed me the wrong way. It was sort of, you'll kill us last, right? And they famously bragged about spending more money on Facebook and Google than anyone else. And then there was pressure being applied from YouTube to sort of step in line. So
That's pretty interesting. Now, I don't know if his YouTube rep said that off the cuff. And, I would argue, when you're talking about the jab, I'm pretty sure Ben was pro-jab. I don't think Matt Walsh was. I'm pretty sure he was the only one I know of at the Daily Wire that was like very openly telling people, hey, my wife's a doctor, get the jab, or something like that. But I do think it's interesting that YouTube was saying like, that YouTube can, was kind of mentioning them as the golden boy or the golden child, all this kind of stuff, which is, nuts. Yeah, that says he claims Daily Wire's close relationship with big tech included heavy ad spending, helped shield them while others faced stricter pressure. And this is something that Mark Dice revealed too.
Corroborate that was something I experienced behind the scenes, if that helps illuminate it at all.
Yeah, and I remember it very well. I remember the adpocalypse, and I remember your tiff with them. I remember you going on Tim Pool. I remember the whole thing. And I've heard that. Even I'm not connected, I'm not tapped in at all. I was radioactive for so long, but even I had heard rumors that they had made deals with Google behind the scenes or Facebook, and it's well known they were like the number 2 advertiser on Facebook, like number 2 overall,
right?
Not like among conservatives, period, for many years. And so, even notwithstanding the Israel stuff, nobody knows the fact that they were kind of the beneficiaries of a monopoly in the sense that like all their competition got banned. Anybody that was dissident, anybody that was controversial, basically was no platformed, not deplatformed, no platformed.
Yeah.
And I think you got caught up in that as well. I remember.
Well, I wouldn't say, there were people who were no platformed, like Nick. And Molyneux, I think, was banned pretty heavy at that time. Alex, these guys were able to stick around because they, built their own platforms, and new tech, new media was allowed to exist. Now those new media people are getting seats at the table, and the whole thing is, kind of come full circle. There's a lot to say about Nick's work ethic and perseverance that have nothing to do with maybe some of his, some of the more inflammatory things he said over the years. That shows kind of like, well, if there's an audience for it and you stay and you don't give up, and when they try to censor you, you can find a way.
I remember it pretty well.
Their contracts require it. And by the way, I was never the one to release. Just to be clear, there are some people there who I'm friends with. Jeremy Boring was never one of them. The contracts necessitated it, right? Where they would penalize their own creators. I believe it was 25% for the first YouTube suspension, 15% more, another 50. If you read the contract, 15% for Facebook suspension. And so my issue wasn't the money. My issue was like, well, first off, this would be 110% penalties for me because I'm literally suspended from all these places right now. But this is de facto doing the bidding of big tech. And that's the reason for it. I didn't like being put in that position, but yeah, so I can understand it. I can understand why a young guy would feel betrayed or feel hung out to dry. And I think that might explain it quite a bit, even if we disagree with your views. Like I told Ben Shapiro in 2016, 2017, I don't think we should be giving any money to Israel. Now, unlike you, I support them over Hamas morally, but I think we should stop funding all sides of the war in the Middle East. And hopefully you find that a reasonable position, whether you agree with it or not.
Well, I think the broader point from this interview that I want to point out is that Nick, whether you agree or disagree with him, or you agree or disagree with his tactics, there's a certain message that he has that is resonating with America's youth. And it comes from a place of frustration. It comes from a place of, feeling powerless, hopeless, demoralized, blocked from society. That's how you end up a groyper, right? Like you feel like you don't have anybody representing you out there. And here's this guy who maybe says some crazy off the wall things sometimes, but mostly you relate to him because he also has been kind of cast off. And this is probably true for Alex Jones too. And I think that when you're talking about, the big takeaway here is that old heads like me and like Steven, we need to be talking to people like Nick and his viewers to understand where we have some level of middle ground. We don't need to be talking about deplatforming him or, tutting down our nose or finger wagging at people who do deplatform him or who platform or have him on their show. I think for a long time, I've always said Nick is welcome on this show, and I've made some uncouth jokes at his expense in the past. And, I used to be a lot more reckless with, Twitter and stuff like that. But love him or hate him, he has a huge audience. And I think it's smarter to be reaching out and trying to understand where he's coming from than having meltdowns about platforming him. And that's where I differ from a lot of the people on the right. And I applaud Stephen for having him on. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it. Don't forget to get your advent calendar from Coffee Brand Coffee, and we'll talk to you again real soon.